Tennessee nugget, worth my weight in gold. The kind of wealth you find in me can't be bought or sold. It's perfect 24 karat, more precious than bullion. And it's yours for the taking. Tennessee love can be your own. So let the dust fly in Phoenix and let it rain in Miami. Let the snow fall in Minneapolis and let it sleep in Milwaukee. Here winds well around Chicago, see sunshine in Waukee. Honey, my roots run deep in Jackson. I've got to shine in Tennessee. Honey, my roots run deep in Jackson. I'm gonna shine in Tennessee.
Hey y'all, it's me. It's Brenda K. Monroe-Moses, and I'm from Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee. And these are my grandsons. This is Tyler Lofton Lewis Evans.
Hey y'all,
And
I'm
he's
from Tennessee.
He's 16. And this is his little brother. His name is Taj Maurice Errol Smith.
And I'm 5.
And we are standing here on the porch of our own little piece of paradise, 332 Hale Street in Jackson, Tennessee. With our friend here today, this is Mr. George Wright Jr. He's our own Satchmo, a trumpet player par excellence. And these are my grandsons, who are the sons of my daughter, Pamela Janine Moses of Memphis. And I have an older daughter, Felicia Moses, who lives in Atlanta, Georgia. But we are all Tennessee Nuggets because our roots run deep in Jackson. Come on into my space and let me share with you some of my most precious memories that will help explain to you why and what I love about Jackson, Tennessee. My roots run deep in Jackson, so I'll just shine in Tennessee. Those words are the hook in a little song that I wrote in 1986. It was right after I had been involved in a celebration for Tennessee Homecoming 86, and that was a year-long state promotion preparing or trying to rev up all Tennesseans to get ready for our bicentennial. It was co-chaired by Governor Lamar Alexander, you know him as Senator Alexander now, and the acclaimed author Alex Haley of Roots fame. A big part of my inspiration for writing that song was based on an incident that happened in November 1985. I wrote the song in July of 86, 9 months later. Let me give you the 411 on that. Some city workers were remodeling a parking lot downtown Jackson on Main Street, and they had been a remodeling several decades before. These 1985 workers apparently dug deeper than their predecessors because they discovered gold coins. And they knew they had stumbled upon something that was valuable, but they had no idea just how much those gold coins were worth. And by the time, a few days later, the Commissioner of Streets discovered that he had prematurely given or conveyed these coins to those workers, to add insult to injury, the city sued as many of them as they could find. One person went right next door to the bank and sold those coins, which turned out to be valued at $20,000 apiece, to a cashier for $400. You see, the essence and the trouble of the essence of what they didn't understand about what they had, it was right there in the palm of their hands. They just couldn't recognize it in its dirty and nondescript and decrepit state. There's a metaphor in here somewhere. Let's see if in my response to the Chamber's question, tell us what you love about Jackson, Tennessee, can help us discover it. My answer is very simple. I love all the precious memories of the people of my hometown, who shaped, molded, and fashioned me into someone who loves my hometown. And I'm referring to, first of all, my parents, my extended family. My parents, Reverend William Monroe and Mrs. Myrtle Monroe, have big families. I'm an only child, and that I came along late in their lives. But I tell you what, I'm not short on kinfolk. You can hardly turn around in Madison County or the city of Jackson without bumping into one of my cousins. I'd also include in this list of the people who had a hand in my development and cultivation, my teachers, certain churches, my professional career, my political career. My roots run deep in Jackson, Tennessee. So much love I received from all these people. And that's why I love Jackson, Tennessee. And you must have some roots here too. There are many people that share this heritage of loving our hometown. I'm not unique in that regard. And if you are not from here, you certainly must have some ties here, if it's just a tie to me. Otherwise, you would not be watching this now. Did you know there's something deeper than roots? It's called the Taproot. And when I searched out my ancestral heritage, I found the taproot of me is down in Mississippi. On both sides of my family, after freedom came in 1865, they came up out of slavery and into West Tennessee. First into rural West Tennessee and Denmark, and later on in the city of Jackson. By the 1920s, in the middle of them, both my mother and my father and their people had migrated to Jackson, Tennessee. For far too long in the United States, if you would say Jackson, people automatically would think of Mississippi. And if you think that's not a serious situation in identity crisis, I'm reminded in 1969 when my mother's youngest sister, her name was Miss Gladys Tennessee, and she was married to a native of Memphis, Mr. Benny Jackson, Tennessee. She came to Memphis to be at my mother's bedside while she was hospitalized in Memphis. A few days later, when she decided she needed to come back to Jackson and check on a few things, she went to the Greyhound bus station and said she wanted a ticket to Jackson. And you've probably guessed by now, that clerk sold her a ticket to Jackson, Mississippi. It was a night bus that my aunt was traveling on, but somehow she discerned that she was not headed home. And when she said something to the bus driver, he had to flag down a bus going back to Memphis and pick her up to take her back to Memphis and on to Jackson, Tennessee. Even when I was in college, and this was before zip codes, my grades from college, Knoxville College, always went to Mississippi first. Of course, sometimes I was a little glad it delayed the drama, maybe. Anyway, it's about time for that identity crisis to end. And with all the great press Jackson, Tennessee has been getting, even as far as the White House in Washington, D.C., getting praise and accolades and awards for being a city, a most livable city of a size of town that it is, or a city, I should say. It's about time for Jackson, Tennessee to take its rightful place in the sun. So when people say Jackson, they'll think Tennessee, not Mississippi. Tell you what, I'm so glad that my parents didn't go any further north from Mississippi than Jackson, Tennessee. Because I lived with my aunt and uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Tennessee, in Detroit 2 years. I can't stand the cold weather, and I don't like snow. It's not only hazardous, it's inconvenient. Speaking of the weather, that's one more thing I like about Jackson, Tennessee. It has 4 distinct seasons. So if you don't like the weather, all you have to do is wait a few months rather, and you'll have something different. Oh, sometimes it might be minutes, but mostly it's months. I am surrounded in Jackson and Madison County by my kinfolk. You can hardly turn around without bumping into one. So I'm not just a Monroe and was a Moses. I got married right out there in a garden wedding in this front yard at 332 Hale Street on September the 23rd, 1972. My parents got married right over there at 337 Hale Street, where our relatives, the Goldens, Mr. Ernest Golden's parents' home house, and they got married over there in front of the fireplace on September the 22nd, 1939. So I am not just a Golden, I'm also related to the Bivens, the Lacey's, the Watkins, a few of the Johnsons, the Bledsoes, the Manleys, just to name a few. I'm surrounded by kinfolk, and I love that. Now let me show you a few of my special interest places. Remember, my roots in Jackson run deep, so I'll just shine in Tennessee. One of my favorite things at Mary High School was the Southern Serenade. It was actually started by, or suggested by a student as a minstrel show to raise money to get new baseball uniforms. It was Noble Granberry of the class of 1927 who made that suggestion. And Miss Martha Theus, a teacher at the school at that time, who named it the Southern Serenade. And when Professor White graduated from Fisk University and came back to Old Mary High, where he graduated from, most of the teachers in Mary High went to both Lane College as well as Mary High. But he went to Fisk and he made the Southern Serenade as the MC a tradition. And I love the Southern Serenade. Miss Lily Bell's store on Baltimore Street is special to me. It's where my parents met. The Bells and the Goldens were members of Berean Baptist Church, and my mother was a member of Berean 65 of her 85 years. When I was only 1 year old, my mother became one of the founding members of the local NAACP chapter, the Jackson-Madison County branch. Those were perilous times. It was dangerous for anybody to know that you were a member at all. And she was one of the founding members, the charter members of the local chapter. My dad was renting a little house at 739 Baltimore Street. And he was a railroad worker, a carpenter, a farmer, a preacher, pastor. He could do many things and he did them well. In my estimation, he was a brilliant man. And he was just waiting for someone like my mom to show up and they could become great partners. They were quite iconic figures in Jackson, Tennessee, as civil rights, social, and community activists. That little red house over there, that little house, my dad built it with some of his companions, just friends that were willing to reach out and help him. Let's go to the onion field, to the GM&O, that's a tongue twister, railroad yard. That's where my dad worked until he retired. He was a Boilermaker helper. It was a dirty, greasy, grimy job. But when it was time for Sunday morning and any other ecumenical responsibilities, he cleaned up nice. He was tall, dark, and handsome. Washington Douglas was my first school. And I was in the first grade at Washington Douglas. It was a brand new school for black children, built in 1952. And that's where I first met Miss Bertha Hill. I see her now in the community and I always have to give her a hug because it was she who first discovered that I had a knack for telling stories. And I loved Mr. Vernon Bryant there as well. With the third grade, I moved on to Lincoln Elementary School, which is almost my all-time favorite school. It was there that I met awesome teachers, Miss Sarah Bonds, Miss Beulah Nielsen, Miss Jessie Lee Brooks, Miss Anita Spicer Hodges, who prepared us for college by reading 2 books on the college reading list when we were in the 6th grade, and Miss Willie G. Stewart, my 7th grade teacher. Awesome teachers at Lincoln Elementary. I love Lincoln School. The only school I love even more than Lincoln Elementary School is Old Mary High. And probably because the last 19 years of my mother's 36 years teaching career was at Old Mary High School. And I have with me today my Mary High classmate, Mr. Lorenzo Tyson, who is also the treasurer of our reunion group. And he's going to tell you a little bit about what we're working on now.
We're in the process of planning our 50th year class reunion, graduating from Mary High School. We're planning our 50th year reunion for Memorial Day weekend, May 23rd through the 25th, 2014. And we're well into our plans process. When we gonna meet?
Where we gonna meet?
Oh, our host hotel will be the All Suites Hotel, and all of our activities will be there except for a couple of programs that we're planning off campus. At old JCM, which was old now JCM, Jackson Central Mary High School, formerly Mary High School.
We had some great times there, didn't we?
We had some great times.
And this very evening, we are they're hosting on campus at JCM the classic basketball game between those old rivals,
Mary High School and West High School.
Great times, glory days. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you for being here, having me here.
Downtown Jackson. In 1947, this is where I was actually born. 3 years before Jackson Madison County General Hospital was built. The U.S. Federal Courthouse, that's where I was born, in the Fitz-White Clinic. Who knew that I would return to this very building on the 43rd anniversary of my dad's death, August 23rd, and that I would make a passionate plea to Judge Samuel Mays concerning unitary status in Jackson Madison County school system. Who knew that I would be the plaintiff in the lawsuit that would desegregate Jackson schools, and that this case would last in federal court for 47 years? Who knew? Certainly not me. In the courts in the United States, the Monroe-Moses Board of Commissioners case is known as one of the Brown versus Board enforcement cases, and it too is a Supreme Court landmark case. Who knew that case, Monroe versus Board of Education, or rather the Board of Commissioners in Jackson, Tennessee, would be the key to gaining name recognition when I decided I would enter the political arena, and that it would help me to become one of the first females, one of two, and one of the first three African Americans to serve as an elected public official in Jackson, Tennessee. I was there as a District 3 councilwoman for 2 terms, a total of 6.5 years. And I am reminded that the first council meeting that we had in January, we were elected in November of '88. We were council people elect. In the first meeting, our first official meeting in January, on the agenda was the dismissal of the lawsuit against the city workers who found those old gold coins. That was the recommendation by a city attorney, and we took it. Judge Joe Morris had already given those workers favor in that case. What was the point in continuing to an appeal? Also, while I was on the city council, we were the people who decided we needed a new city hall. And while we never met there as council persons, let me see, maybe Anna Parks Covington did, because she's the only member that's represented 2 districts. I don't recall just now. But anyway, we built the new city hall, and it is a tremendous building. We had a celebration recently of the 25th anniversary of the changing of our government to a mayor city council, instead of the mayor and 2 commissioners that we had for 73 years. 7 years at Jayco's Music Store turned me into a classical musician, and also gave me the earning power to be a church musician and get paid for it. Speaking of churches, I joined my mother's church, Berean, when I was 7 years old. And there are some other churches that have had a great impact on my life. My dad was called to pastor Cumberland Street Church. It was just down the street from where we lived. And I started going there and made some great friends there. I went back to my mother's church, Berean, when I was about 15 and learned how to play the organ. And for many years, I played the organ at Cumberland. My dad, who had just an 8th grade education formally, in his latter days was a teacher at the extension school at New Hope Baptist Church, Serenade. My dad was a teacher, which was following the tradition of his dad, Abraham Lincoln Monroe, who was born the year the Civil War started. He became a teacher as well as a sharecropper, kind of an unusual combination. His higher education was literacy. Just behind me again, you see the home of Mr. and Mrs. George Golden. Mrs. Sarah Golden was principal of South Jackson School, and their son Ernest gave me a bit of oral history that I found rather astonishing. Back in the 1940s, his mother hired Thurgood Marshall, civil rights lawyer at the time, to come in and file a lawsuit to try to equalize pay between black and white teachers. And he did very well on that case. As you all know, he became the first African American to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, appointed by President Johnson in 1967. He's a Jackson, Tennessee nugget. He came here and represented Sarah Golden. So you see, that wasn't the first lawsuit in my family that had something to do with education. Now I have saved the best for last. Union University has an old site that's over here not far from my house. And as you know, it's out on the bypass now. But more to the point of my story, Union became the incubator for my current church connection, Agape Christian Fellowship, which is located at 600 North Parkway. For about 2 years, a small group met in a classroom at Union under the leadership of retired professor of Lane, also a Laneite, and a professor from Union, Reverend Dr. Roland Porter. After 2 years, an opportunity came to be housed on North Parkway. And now we are all excited. We are so excited because God, through his mercy and favor, has given us our new sanctuary and facilities right adjacent to where our present location is. And we are going with the gospel. We are commanded by God and his word to fill this house. And by his grace, his mercy, and favor, we will continue to fulfill that command, because things go better with Jesus Christ. And we want to fill this house, this new house, with not just our current family, but new believers, so they can have the same personal relationship with Jesus Christ that we have and enjoy the fellowship of true believers. Yes. Agape Christian Fellowship Church, it means love in action. We tentatively plan to move into our new sanctuary and facilities the first Sunday in November. So come rejoice with us. Come check us out. My journey is over. Did you find the metaphor yet in my story? Could it be this? Sometimes just what you've been looking for, searching for, is right there in the palm of your hand, or right under your nose. If it doesn't appear and look exactly as you expected or you thought it would, you'll miss its value and virtue. And it may be plucked right out of your very hand. Jackson, Tennessee, the hub city, the center of the Golden Circle area, Jackson, what America is meant to be. Connect here to Jackson, West Tennessee's crown jewel. I call it Jewel City, where we, all the people, can make it a more livable city for everyone. North, south, east, west. My roots run deep in Jackson, so I'll just shine in Tennessee. What are we here to say? My roots run deep in Jackson, so I'll just shine in Tennessee. Bye, y'all. Bye, y'all.